Welcome. Got mailbag from, that's strong. Mailbag from U.S. Struggles video. There you go. Good stuff. Few things first. Pretty excited about this. New drill came in the mail. So we can get some projects done around the house. Take care of some stuff there. Ooh, here's a good one. Oh no, it's a nail gun. Gonna put some molding. Really elevate the old homestead a little bit. And Milwaukee tools. If you guys are in the market for some tools, Milwaukee tools, so don't pass this along. Milwaukee tools, that'd be great. A discount would be awesome. Like, they have great stuff. Bust real nice stuff. Got more stuff coming in the mail. All right, let's do this. U.S. Struggles. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so the essential question was, which factor was the greatest in contributing to the initial struggles of the U.S. military in World War II? Gotta be honest, of the 3 different question videos we've had so far, I thought this was by far the absolute best in terms of like people's essential questions, answers. Like, awesome job on this. Like, just really impressive stuff. So this was very difficult to actually pick kind of the ones I liked, but this is in no particular order. It's just kind of going on my computer screen here. Owen, congratulations, 100 points. The Germans and the Japanese had well-trained, well-experienced, and well-equipped armies. I think that's an excellent answer. Certainly, the fact the enemy gets a vote comes into play here. Hey, just because we're the United States, like, other militaries can be very strong too, especially when we're talking about World War II. Sometimes we think of things through the lens of in today, where we're the most powerful military in the world, but that hasn't always been the case. And certainly in 1941, 1942, you could definitely make the argument the Japanese and the Germans were both a stronger military force than us. Captain America, Ryan Bergman. His is a long one, so I got to double click. I think there are 2 main causes. Number 1 being that we didn't have our leader in the right positions, because while Patton was a great tactician, he wasn't a good strategist, and while Eisenhower wasn't a great tactician, he was a good strategist. Ryan? Just view it right there. That's a phenomenal answer, because it's true. Patton was not a great strategist. He was a great tactician. Eisenhower really isn't a great tactical general, but he's a great strategist. So putting people in position to be successful, we didn't do that right away. So that tells you that it matters where your leaders are. 100% correct. Also, number 2 is we had cut military spending over 50%. So that means we had to build our budget back up and to get to where we need to be militarily. I do think one of the most common answers I saw, and I think it's a great answer, is the fact that we did cut military spending by 50%, and that put us kind of behind the 8 ball 1941, 1942. Jameson. The greatest factor is the Americans didn't have a lot of trained men. It was most people who were new to warfare. 100% true. United States, as of 1941, early 1942, had a very small standing military, so we did not have many trained soldiers. Connor Sieber. The Great Depression, because all military spending was cut by 50%. I 100% agree with that. Emily Wickland. I think the biggest factor is Roosevelt cutting our military by 50%. I think there's the biggest factor because we were not prepared for war and didn't have equipment, people, etc. I agree with that 100%. Certainly, I think, again, as I said before, one of those popular answers has been the cuts in military spending. It's a huge factor. That's a huge factor in this. So, great answer. Kylie. Double click on this one. That it takes time to build a military because, as stated, it takes time to train people and find people's weaknesses and strengths. If you were to throw an untrained military out to fight in a battle, it might not give you the outcome you wanted, such as a win. Also, more deaths could be caused because people don't know what they're doing. 100% correct on that. And a lot of these factors kind of roll in together, where certainly a lack of trained military is a result of cutting military spending and things like that. But I think that's a great answer because it's not a video game. Militaries take time to train. They take time to actually develop. So great answer there. Miss Sullivan. Had double click. I believe the biggest factor to contribute to our initial struggles was the fact that the military had no strong leaders. Because of this, the military had no one to push for military spending to not be cut, start training armies, make sure the armies were trained to be at least equal opponents to Germany and Japan. I believe a strong leader would be able to recognize that the time between World War I and World War II is just a pause, that the looming threat of World War was imminent. I agree 100% with that. And that's a good job of like kind of going off of what I actually said during the video. That like, there were certainly people inside the U.S. military between 1919 and 1941 who were clamoring for an increase in military spending and warning Roosevelt and warning politicians that, hey, this is not going to be good for us long term, because both Japan and Germany, Russia, well, the Soviet Union, and Italy are all aggressive military forces, and we need to be prepared for that. The problem was not any single U.S. military leader had enough political power to really make that argument effective. I guess you could say maybe MacArthur had a little more power than other people, but no individual really could sway politicians that much. And so you had individuals like Patton who knew, okay, a war is going to be coming. George Marshall knew a war is going to be coming. Eisenhower knew a war was going to be coming, but unfortunately they're kind of not in the right positions to actually do anything about that. So that's a great takeaway. Estrella. I believe it was the Great Depression because of how much less money that you'd be spending on everything, especially the war and prepping them. Yeah, Great Depression has a large part to do with this. Why do we cut military spending by 50%? Well, it's because of the Great Depression. The idea was that we needed to divert money from military spending to domestic programs as a way to help circumvent or stop the high unemployment rates. We can certainly look back and say, okay, maybe that was a mistake in hindsight, but in 1933, when you're making these cuts, you don't know World War II necessarily is going to happen in 41. So I think that's a great observation, Estrella. Estrella, good job. Way to keep believing in yourself. Addie had a double click. See, if you write a longer answer, I have to double click on these. The biggest factor that caused us to struggle, in my opinion, is to cut military spending because we won't be buying as many materials for our army to train, which causes our new military to be confused on the battlefield. If you're confused, sometimes you don't make smart choices. Hence, soldiers make the wrong decisions, costing American lives. I agree with that. Lack of training, lack of resources, lack of equipment, lack of really good technology. One of the things that during the Zoom session on Monday, me and Mr. Lou Owen were talking about this, the idea of like how technologically the Germans and the Japanese, you can make the strong argument, were far more advanced than the United States was militarily, tech-wise, in World War II. We just industrially had more stuff than they did, but that wasn't the case in 1941, 1942. It's a great one. Gavin. The enemy had a 10-year head start, but that gives them time to gather information, supplies, leaders, troops, etc. The United States also not keep up with the war as much either. With that, we call it operational experience. They had 10 years of operational experience on us. That's a big deal. That also means they had 10 years to figure out who their best leaders were and who their best tacticians and strategists were and put them in proper positions of power. We didn't have that. That's an awesome answer. Riley Wolf. Double click. The U.S. entering later in the war because everyone that was already fighting had info about how the armies tended to fight, what they most likely do and send, who, where, when, and why. Entering late in the war would surely cause a massive lack of information, not to mention a smaller, less experienced army. 100% correct on all those things. We went in there with less knowledge, less tactical experience, less strategic experience. Just a lot of uncertainty that the other armies, because they had 10 years of fighting before us, just didn't have. So that's a phenomenal answer. Let's go with some on your own questions. Okay. Tanner Smith. Ooh, Tanner, got two here. Okay. One, why didn't they prepare ahead of time? Cuts in military spending. A lot of U.S. political leaders were isolationists. And so even though they knew there was a storm coming in terms of World War II, they didn't want to actually face the reality of the storm. One of the things you're going to see in politics from the dawn of time to the rest of time is going to be politicians do a really, really bad job of forecasting things. You look at the coronavirus thing right now. Just today, April 8th, 2020, a report came out that U.S. intelligence agencies had actually warned a number of politicians in December about some of the issues with the coronavirus and what was going on inside China, and politicians on both sides of the political aisle, both Republicans and Democrats, seem to ignore it. So politicians do a very poor job of preparing a lot of the time because they don't think in terms of 5, 10, 15 years. They think in terms of what can get me reelected. Second question, what Black Rifle coffee is your favorite? Freedom Fuel, obviously. And that's what that is. Okay. Why didn't Trump just build a wall around the French people to stop them? It's from Abby Murray. Abby, I don't know. I guess there's an entire ocean that separates us in France. So there you go. The glare off my glasses is very distracting, by the way. Okay. Javier, how's it going? Well, good to hear. Okay. What's your favorite food? Depends. Right now I've been like on a real pizza kick. Like, got to keep the economy going and stuff, so ordering a lot of pizza. But man, if I like really got to like hammer it down, nice rare steak, like rare as in they call this red marker rare, like freshly mooing rare, or apple pie. Owen, what if the U.S. did not cut its military spending by half? I don't think World War II happens. I know this answers a lot of people's questions, but I think if Germany and Japan, especially Japan, recognize that the United States is equal strength or near equal strength to them, it serves as a deterrent force that kept them from attacking Pearl Harbor and would have prevented World War II from happening. One of the reasons why we have a strong military is so we don't have to use our military. It works as a deterrent force. It deters people from taking actions like that. Second question from Owen. What if Kenny Rogers was Supreme Allied Commander? Kenny Rogers, rest in peace. Also, by the way, Joe Diffie, another country music former star, passed away. Go to this thing called YouTube, and YouTube John Deere Green by Joe Diffie. Great song. I'm assuming we would probably have lost World War II because I don't think Kenny Rogers was a tactical genius. Ryan, how can we decide to cut military spending? Great Depression. We thought that was a way to spark the U.S. economy. It was not. That is not. It didn't help at all. Why are your teacher not a Kenny Rogers cover artist? Great question. I wonder that myself. I feel that I really missed my calling as a Kenny Rogers cover artist. Gambler, nailed it. Other Kenny Rogers songs, Islands in the Stream, a duet, I can do that one too. Cowardly County, I'm sure there's other Kenny Rogers songs other than those three. Love Will Turn Us Around, there, 4. Yeah, really, I should have done that. I've wasted my life. Jameson, do you do a lot of labs and studies in your basement? No, because my basement is a gym. It's the Church of Iron. And mass is always in session. Okay. How come the U.S. was tearing down the military where other countries building them up? Elizabeth, great question. It was a Great Depression that, unfortunately, a lot of the really good countries, so like United States, peaceful countries, I should say, they were tearing down their militaries while aggressive countries like Germany, Italy, Soviet Union, and Japan were building up their countries. It was a decision because they thought that was going to help them overcome the Great Depression. Connor, is Mr. Frank going insane in his own house? Ha! Trick question. I was already insane. So this is no real change, but the answer is probably yes. Lily K, Lily Kulik. Was a guitar prop, or do you actually know how to play the guitar? No clue. I have absolutely no clue whatsoever. I don't even know why I have a guitar, to be honest. But I do. So there you go. Emily Wickland, why did Roosevelt cut military spending? The idea was that you would transfer the funds that went to the U.S. military into domestic programs that would hopefully spark the U.S. economy. It did not work. Where did you get voice lessons? Self-taught. Self-taught, thank you very much. Best guitar player in the world. So yeah, there you go. That's all I got. Self-taught. Okay. Kylie, why wasn't Patton put in command role like he had wished? It's because people didn't like Patton. Patton was not a very well-liked person because he was kind of a butthead. He was an egomaniac, he was a jerk, but he's also brilliant tactically. He was in the right position as a secondary commander, but not as the supreme commander, but that's why. Sophie, why did the military fall apart after World War I? Someone must have known World War II was imminent. And that's kind of the weird things. Politicians basically allow the military to fall apart. They legitimately believe that World War I is such a devastating war that no other war would ever happen. They were wrong on that. It was so ridiculous that actually in the 1920s, some senators actually proposed a bill inside of the Senate to outlaw war. That's how dumb this was. A lot of people in the U.S. military, though, understood this is just a pause. We are pausing on war. Unfortunately, a lot of those military commanders were not actually listened to. Sophie, have I actually read all these books? Yeah, I have. I try as I can to read about a book a week. Certainly right now during quarantine, I'm doing a much better job of that. But yeah, I read a lot of military strategy books, a lot of military history books, things like that. A lot of leadership books. I find military stuff to be the best leadership books because if you can lead people in the course of the worst that human beings can do to each other, you can lead anyone in any situation. Autumn. What was the first battle the U.S. was involved in? In the European theater, it was the Battle of Kasserine Pass, where we were soundly defeated by Rommel and the Nazis in the Pacific theater of the war. I don't know, I guess you could say Pearl Harbor, but maybe Coral Sea is a better answer to that. It all depends on how you define battle. Okay. Estrella, doing a very good job today with questions. How do you think we would have done better placing commanders? How do you think we could have done better on placing commanders in the correct positions? Oh, we've done much better, but sometimes that's one of the things where that takes time. It takes time to figure out who an actual good leader is and who's someone who's great on paper, but in all actuality just isn't a leader. Lily Euler. What could have been done better? This is a long video. I'm sorry. I'm not really that sorry. What could have done better to handle the Great Depression? That's not an American war question, but I'm going to answer you the question because here's the honest to goodness answer. Done nothing. They would have been better off just sitting and doing nothing because the market would have recovered on its own in a matter of weeks. Government programs is what ended up making it far worse. So there you go. What do you think the worst struggles were? Well, yeah, I like that question. Really good job. Personally, I think it was the U.S. isolationism, because if we weren't isolationists, we wouldn't have cut the military spend. I don't know. They all come in together. I think it's some combination of the isolationism with the cutting military by 50%. So with the Great Depression, they all kind of rolling together. Addie, how does the stock market crash during the Great Depression affect American soldiers willing to fight? I guess like the market crash affects things because we reduce military spending by 50%, and so you have a lack of training, like things like that. Like you don't have the money to pay people to be in the military, so you have military enlistees go down. After Pearl Harbor happens, it's like everything just disappears because the country has to industrialize for straighten the tie, has to industrialize for war. So there's not like an enthusiasm or morale issue inside of World War II, at least if we compare it to like Vietnam. Okay, here's the funny one. What happened if Mr. Frank posted a survey of who's the hotter Medal of Honor recipient? That's a great question. It's either Audie Murphy or John Basilone. Take your pick. And what is Mr. Frank's new album called? Let's Be Frank, a Kenny Rogers tribute CD on shelves on Amazon tomorrow or something. Okay. Andrew Green, why do you think it was best to isolate, or why did they think it was best for us to isolate themselves? They thought it was a way to avoid war. That's what they thought it was. Unfortunately, that history has told us that's not the way these things work. Gosh, this is the longest video ever. Now I do apologize. Gavin, do you do the dishes before or after you eat? True or false? True. No, false. You like obviously you eat first and you do the dishes. False. Okay. Hunter, why did President Roosevelt cut the military? He thought it was going to help with the Great Depression. Why were the Nazis in North Africa? The answer is because the Italians were so bad at fighting that the Nazis had to go into North Africa to basically supplement the really bad fighting Italian forces. Riley, Wolf, by this time some of the soldiers who still served were brought up by parents who fought in the Civil War. How does this affect their upbringing, and did it make them better soldiers? Hearing what happened during battle from someone who was really there. Oh, 100%. So I'm going to give you one very, very, very specific answer, or person, George Patton. Patton's family had served in the Civil War, and so he grew up on these stories of great generalship and leadership inside of the American Civil War. And so that's one of the things that motivated him and drove him to be who he was. It was these Civil War stories. It's not just him, though. It's because you look at Marshall, look at Eisenhower. Most of these generals grew up with the stories of parents or family members who had served in the Civil War, and so they were enthralled by U.S. military. So great question. Second question: what has cities but no houses, forests but no trees, and water but no fish? The answer is cats. That's cold. Okay. Really, why am I allergic to peanuts? Genetics mostly, and genetics. Pretty stout. I'm too tired. It's not really a question. It's more of a statement. I'm too tired. Things that will help you with not being tired: coffee, and gains. Cheyenne, why would it take so long to build up a military when they could just draft men out of war? They could draft, but you still had to train them, and so it was like a 6-month period of time between drafting and training, because they didn't just want to put new soldiers out there on the field. How would the outcome of war change if we had been building up our military instead of tearing it down? War wouldn't have happened. I truly do think that the Japanese and the Germans would not have started World War II knowing that the United States was there to serve as a deterrent force to that. We're almost at the 20-minute mark. Jeez. Finally, Lee Copen, how long did the isolation last from 1919 to 1941, December 8th, 1941 specifically. That's when we longer became an isolationist country. We've not been isolationist since then. There you go. 20 minutes and some seconds. Okay, keep up with the questions. Great work, everyone. Keep believing in yourself. Believe in the country. Go outside. Don't shake people's hands. Give them waves. Social distance. Wash your hands. Until next time.